Okay. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Dr. Kathleen Majera. I am currently a professor at the State University of New York at Fredonia and a to-teach educational consultant. This webinar is co-sponsored by the California State University Northridge Center for Teaching and Learning and also for To Teach. And the title of this presentation is Teaching to the Screen, How to Develop a Community of Learning. So I'm going to just show you the PowerPoint that we're going to use today, and I'll be able to take questions at the end of the presentation. So we'll have time for that as well. Just trying to get my little picture off here. And get the PowerPoint going. Oh, there we go. So you might have found yourself suddenly shifting to online learning unexpectedly this past spring due to the coronavirus outbreak. And you might have felt like this when gas prices are finally low enough to take a road trip, but you're quarantined inside. So where I live, we're still pretty much quarantined. School has been canceled till the end of the school year, and we'll see where we go from there. So it's pretty much a lockdown where I live. But you might have felt like Kermit the Frog, kind of being stuck inside with this new way of learning that was unexpected. So we missed our students, but I found a little video on Canadian television that might help you express how you might be feeling about online teaching, and let me just share that. So you might feel like Miss Sweet Music Teacher too sometimes, right? When it doesn't quite work or the online assignments are not doing what they're supposed to do. So that might be you at times when things are not working as well as you would like them to. So we miss our students, but sometimes we're facing new frustrations. So there are a lot of distractions out there for our students when they are learning online at home. Their schedule might be disrupted. They may be sharing computers with families that are working from home. There might be multiple students in the household trying to use computers. And it's really, there are a lot of distractions, and they just might be trying to take off on you and just saying goodbye. So we're going to try to look at how that can be done differently by building an online community of learning. So there are 3 points that I want to make during this webinar. And the first point is, how do you get students' attention online? So let's try to get students to use their phones to learn online and not just do other fun things that they might be doing throughout the day. So the first thing you can look at is what makes your class engaging and how can you create a community of learning online. So think about what works with your in-person learning and how that can be translated into online learning. So that's our first point. So think about what already works in your teaching. You know, if you've been teaching a while, or even if you're new to teaching, you want to make some of the material online familiar to the students. So for instance, do your students like a friendly competition? Something that you can moderate? Can they earn points? Can they somehow have a little competition that again is moderated by you? So that is a possibility that you do in your real teaching face-to-face. The next thing is what already works. Do you use games in your teaching? And do students like to play games that are educational and involve learning? And if that has been done in the past, maybe that is something that can be incorporated in online learning as well as playing games. And lastly, what already works in your teaching? Is there a special day like Fun Fridays that students like that you can work towards? Think about sometimes we lose track of the days. And if we know that on Fridays there's a Fun Friday activity that we can work towards, you can kind of count down the days to remind students what day of the week it is and incorporate that in your online teaching. And especially if you had done that in the past, it might work again. So it could be simple things like Hat Day on Fun Friday, which I used to use in my own teaching. And you could use, you know, maybe not do the writing part of an assignment and wear a hat instead. So it's a fun way of doing things, and it might be familiar from the past, and you could use that to connect with your students in real time when you're teaching online. So what you want to do is you want to create some fireworks. Kind of stir some interest in students, catch their, build on what they like to do and what they're familiar with, maybe introduce new things, and get them, again, engaged and feeding off of what they already know and what's important in their own learning styles. So create some fireworks in your online teaching. Doesn't have to be super fancy, but just interesting in some ways. So you want to encourage student participation somehow. Make sure they're breathing out there, they're responding, that you're engaging them in their learning and that they want to come back to the classroom and participate in whatever ways that you're showing them. So the phones that they're going to have, most of them have access to, make use of that. It will keep them from doing other things while you're teaching or engaging them somehow. So that can be a useful tool. And you want to have them make a move online, somehow respond to the material that is there and show that they know. So making a move is a good way to know that they're out there and they're returning to that online learning community. So different ways of doing that. So it can be as simple as a little social pressure to just let you know that they're out there and they're breathing and they want to be part of this classroom environment in this time of uncertainty and sometimes chaos. So you can look for short student responses at times, just to keep things going, right? To keep moving, just like you would do in a face-to-face class. So maybe they need to reply in a chat box. They could answer a survey monkey about interests or what they're doing. The students might be able to share an interesting link with you, or just post a picture that is related to their life in this time of quarantine, and see how that goes. So short student responses keep students engaged and moving along with their learning. So everything doesn't have to be a big project. So that's a way of keeping them engaged. So I posted online my friendly dog, Ernie, that I walk 3 times a day because that's how I can get out of my house. And so you might have them post their pets or their, some animal that interests them, something like that. And to, again, engage them in the learning community. They could write a caption for Ernie. They could express a feeling. Maybe Ernie's tired of being inside as well, and so are they. They could use a little thought bubble. Students could post a response to the picture, even if they don't have a pet, but it makes it more personal. That really is my dog that I really do walk 3 times a day. And that helps them know a little bit about me and tells them maybe how I'm feeling as well. So again, short responses that keep students engaged and lets them know that you're there for them and they are part of this community of learning as well. So you want to create a community of learning online. There's that feeling of togetherness, that we're still a class. And one of the ways of doing that is to design small student groupings using online breakout rooms. So maybe put students in pairs or triads where they need to work together and they're just not listening to you lecture, which can be sometimes distracting because it's only one person. But when you create those small student groups, just like you would with in-person learning, you want to consider students' abilities, what their interests are, their use of technology and the access to it. Are they savvy about it or not? Do they have assistance from their families? And compatibility when grouping students. Students who get along probably will work better together than students who have differences in personalities. So you want to make that flow and see if you can get your horses galloping in the right direction when you're thinking about online learning. So again, when you're creating a community of learning online, you can give students chances to work offline, which might be refreshing at times, not looking at a screen the whole time. Or give them platforms, let them work on platforms that they prefer for a designated amount of time. So timing, how much time you want them to spend on tasks offline or with different platforms can be important in letting you kind of control or regulate how students are performing. And really, my little caution sign is you might have little ducks that can waddle across the road in this time of online learning and make it to the other side, maybe because they have a lot of support or they know how to use the computer or they're familiar with something. But then you could also have your turtles, right? Students who really crawl along and are not sure of the expectations or this is new to them. And so you just might have that variability of performance as well as access to technology and maybe even intermittent Wi-Fi depending on on where they live and what they're doing. So things to consider when creating a community of learning online and helping those students feel engaged. So that was my first point. Second point, when possible, give students options in the way assignments are submitted. We know that's good teaching practice for face-to-face classes, but it can also be a good way of building in some interest with online teaching. So written assignments, pictorial displays, oral presentations that are recorded, combination of options, writing a song, recording it, and just having learning still be fun to them and helping them to be engaged. And it's fun to fail. Sometimes these things work, sometimes they don't work. Creating an environment that's inspiring, doing a little bit of fireworks. Very important during this time of quarantine and isolation that students feel safe, that they are appreciated online, that their phones become a healthy addiction for looking for information and for learning, and that they get to choose how they learn, which is a wonderful thing, and that they're enjoying what they're doing. We know that when they enjoy and are having fun learning, that they're more likely to do it and to be engaged with the class and with you. So you could try choice boards. So the advantages of this is that it gives students ownership, it helps them show what they know, and yet provides a limited range of options. So in this example, there's various ways of doing writing, and students could choose from that. They could do a podcast, they could do a digital storyboard, a video, a puppet video, note-taking. So how do we give them choices within a certain range? And a lot of times you have to think about how much time you're giving them and the length of the assignment that makes sense and how much latitude they have. But a choice board would help with that kind of thing. And if you've never done that kind of thing before, an explanation would be needed beforehand, and then the students could use it afterwards. And then think outside the box. Encourage students to search for websites, apps, and other online media that may be new to you. So a nice exchange of students who may be learning new things themselves online, that they can share with you or the rest of the class, and encourage them to do that, right? We have time these days, right? We're not going outside as much as we used to. And so that kind of exploration can be helpful to students and to us as teachers. So thinking outside the box can be a way of building community and sharing, right? Just like we would do with in-person learning as well. So my third point is to provide models of what assignments should look like for you as the teacher. This is probably helpful to students and families, like what is it that you're going after and how should this look at the end? So a model can be helpful. And then in this time of change and lack of structure in some ways, praising students for attempting at completing online assignments. It might not be quite what you expected, but they tried, they put some effort into it, and praising them for attempts as well. And also that students can redo assignments. Maybe when they really see another person doing it, or if they're working in a group that didn't quite gel, giving them another bite of the apple and saying that that's okay, that we are living in different kinds of times and allowing students to redo those assignments. And also support students. So provide scheduled help sessions for the assignment and the technology. So maybe like designated office hours. So you don't want to be, all the time, all day long doing that, but maybe from 2 to 3 on Thursdays, I will be available to answer questions on the assignment or the technology that you're having difficulty with. So this morning I was talking to somebody in my book club that we did last night, which was purely a conference call. I took my phone, I can have 5 people on the line, and we talked about the book, right? So that was a fun way of doing it. But the person who couldn't join us got confused between Zoom, which has a picture to it, right, and it's very different, and what I was asking for, where we just talked about the book online using the phone, which is, again, an offline way of working things and just an easier way of doing it. So people who were less tech savvy did it in a simpler format, and it just worked better. Actually, there was a person in the group that had a hearing impairment, and it was easier to just use the conference call that could go right to his hearing aids as opposed to Zoom, which sometimes has some feedback. And that was just more useful to that particular person. So think about those kinds of ways that we can support people that may be new to this technology as well. So a new normal. So we're trying to, again, create community online. And you want to check on students' emotional health. And maybe that's done between, on an assignment with a picture that maybe mirrors how they're feeling, or just asking, how are you doing? I find that when I'm on my online communities, that's a basic question. How are you handling all this? Also giving students a sense of belonging, that they're still part of your class, they're important, that kind of thing. Sharing your own feelings with them, that you miss them, that this is hard for you, that you miss being at school, you're looking forward to the day when we can all be together. And we're not sure about that right now, although some school districts know that they're not, including the state I live in, that we're not going back to school, and that the fall may look very different. So it depends on where you live and what your school district has decided to do. But sharing your own feelings, I think, really makes people feel attached to you and engaged with you as the teacher, a caring adult who can tell them, that they're part of their community of learning still. Final point, be honest about what worked and what did not work for you as the teacher and your students. So sometimes we're trying things online and it doesn't exactly hit the nail on the head, and just tell students that. So when I've been teaching online, academic writing, for instance, I remember looking through Google Docs and really explaining with a lot of words, and it really didn't work. And then I found a video online. It was just a few minutes long, posted that in the Google Doc, and ta-da, it really helped people. So you can kind of see that, using lots of words weren't really the answer, and admitting that. And maybe students sometimes have better ways of doing things or better explanations, and maybe they can be more engaging too. So that honesty in this new way of learning that we suddenly came upon can be helpful too. And a little quote from Albert Einstein: anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. So we want to expect mistakes, right? And glitches, and maybe technology isn't quite the way we want it to work. And how does that, show itself up online and that kind of thing. So just realizing that is what can happen to us as well, right? As teachers, learning new things and trying different ways of doing things. So thanks for viewing. My last slide is to be kind to each other. One of the things that I saw in my neighborhood is this chalk talk, where students are writing on the sidewalk in front of their house about stay positive, be kind, we'll get through this. And so it's fun. Again, when I'm walking the dog, my major activity there is to be kind. So I think that is important as well during these times of change and uncertainty, lack of structure sometimes. And there's my email address. So I'm happy to talk to people about it. That's my Fredonia account. I still use that there, and it's still available to me online, even though our semester is winding down and I'll be submitting grades next week. But so that's important. And then thank you for using the QR codes to learn more about the California State University Center for Teaching and Learning. and the To Teach Educational Consulting. And so there are the websites if you want to take a picture of that, scan that information or further